Giving all the praises, honor, and glory to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Ba'ashim Kakodash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who rule and teach well. Peace and safety and much blessings to the Yakim that's pushing this truth out the four corners of the earth, and all truth and sincerity and in diligence. Shalom. All right, and I got this clip right here, and I got an article. All right, going into, Donald Trump, man. All right, this guy, he's at it again. This happened here. This happened in April, from what I seen. All right, and this is prophecy. All right, this is prophecy. And the minute the Lord been teaching and preaching, prophecy, the true men of the Lord. All right, with the true doctrine, beginning with the elders and apostles of the great millstone and the brothers that's laboring on down. You know, and right here, Donald Trump, what it says, you see, it's time for the NATO, right? So like, it's time for the United States to leave NATO in Europe. All right, and we knew through the Spirit, we knew through the words that are written, which are faithful and true, right? We knew that this was going to happen, man. Now this is just him saying this, right? Because this is America, right? This is not a monolithic system, if that works, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play this.
Not sticking together. I think that NATO made a terrible mistake when they wouldn't send a small amount of military armament, when they wouldn't send, just even acknowledge what we were doing for the world and taking on Iran. But I think a tremendous mistake was when NATO just wasn't there. They just weren't there. It's going to make a lot of money for the United States because we spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on NATO, hundreds of protecting them. And we would have always been there for them. But now, based on their actions, I guess we don't have to be, do we?
See? You see what he said? They wasn't there for us. Based up on their actions, we don't have to be there, do we? So, listen to that, man.
It looks like you haven't set up iMessage.
I hope that you couldn't hear that, but so look at that. This man right here telling you, hey, shit, y'all wasn't there for us, so look, we ain't gonna be there for y'all, man. All right, that's that alliance breaking up, man. Okay, that alliance that's been in place since the NATO was established in 1949. Okay. NATO was established in 1949, and then you had the EEC, I believe that's what that is, the EEC or the EU, right? Which was established, which that makes up this whole beast, right? This beast system, all right, with America, it being that whore that rideth upon the beast. You see? Hold on, I'm looking up something right quick. This is so yeah, the NATO was established in 1949. All right, and the Treaty of Rome, right? The Treaty of Rome was in 1958. Okay, which made up the EEC. Yup, there it is, made up with the EEC. Okay. And that goes into what they shall give their power to the beast for 1 hour. 1 hour being what? Let's see, 42. I believe that if you go to, let me see, 40 and 2 months. I think. Let me look this up right quick. Salakia. Wait a second. A little chat GBT. Alright, so at 1 hour, yeah, that's like 42 years. Yep, 42. 42 years. Alright, because when you do 1958, which like I just did, 1958 minus 2000, I'm gonna do it again, it's 42. Well, I mean, 2000 minus 1958. 1958 is 42. All right, which is that 1 hour. So they've been living on borrowed time. Okay, And this Esau Edom know that this is over with. Esau Edom know that his whole little reign is coming to an end. All right, and Donald Dump up here is showing us, right? Prophecy is playing out in the flesh, man. All right, and look at the things that he's saying. The Lord put the spirit on this man to say that. Look, Proverbs 21. This is Proverbs 21 and 1. The king's heart is in the hands of the Lord, and the river, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever so he will. Okay? Every way of the eye, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. All right, so the Lord is putting the spirit on this man to talk like that. The Lord is controlling the elites. All right? You see? Let me run this back. From like right here.
Send a terrible mistake. Made a terrible mistake when they wouldn't send a small amount of military armament, when they wouldn't send just even acknowledge what we were doing for the world and taking on Iran. But I think a tremendous mistake was when NATO just wasn't there. They just weren't there. It's going to make a lot of money for the United States because we spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on NATO, hundreds of protecting them. And we would have always been there for them. But now, based on their actions, I guess we don't have to be, do we?
See, we don't have. That's what he's saying. We don't have to be because the EU, right? The EU, they deal with the political side of it, and the NATO deals with the military side of it. Like EU deals with like sanctions and I guess economical issues and political issues and things like that. But the NATO is more militant, right? If you attack one NATO member, you attack them all. Okay. That's what they do, but they didn't join this war, and so Donald Trump is butthurt about it, man. Okay, which is he's speaking these words, alluding to the leaving of NATO, but right in this article, right, look, check this out. This is separation of powers and NATO withdrawal. I looked this up too. It says in 2003, Congress enacted a law that prohibits president from suspending, terminating, denouncing, or withdrawing the United States from the NATO, which established the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, without the advice, consent of the Senate or act of Congress. So basically, he can't do nothing, without everybody agreeing. Okay. What to call that word? Unilaterally. He can't do that without everybody, unilaterally. I guess agreeing all the way across the board. But he's been a critic of NATO. He's been criticizing NATO. He ain't been making allies. He been making enemies within his own, power structure, if you will. All right, because he's got a lot of pride. America sits on this high horse of pride, because of the military, But hey, the weak is saying I'm strong these days. So America is not looking so powerful. All right, because they said that this war was supposed to last for so long, but America really getting their ass kicked over there. Okay. So what I did, I looked up on the chat GBT, if I'm saying that right. It says, let me look at that. All right. So look, because I looked in the chat, I say, which American allies are getting bombed that America is struggling to protect, right? So these are the NATO nations. These are the NATO don't want to get involved with the war because America can't protect the other allies, right? Because look, check it out. It says, hold on. So right now, Iran, right, has directly attacked several of America's allies: Israel, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, right, Saudi Arabia, and they can't protect them, bro. All right, so These NATO nations are like, man, we're not getting involved with that. You see, we're not getting involved with none of that, right? Which brings me to the book of Obadiah, the first chapter. This is prophecy that is happening, right? And so if United States pull out of NATO, who do you think these European nations are gonna cleave to? They're gonna cleave to Russia, man. Just like you got Israel, and I did a video on this. Israel looks at Turkey like the new Iran, man. And Turkey is a member of NATO. So you see the conflict in that, right? This is Obadiah 1:7. It says, all men of thy, and this is about Edom. All right, these are the things concerning Edom. All men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee, right? They standing on 10. We're not getting involved with this. And only thing Donald Dump emotional ass gonna do is create enemies that's going to do what? Turn on him. Pursuant to the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee, and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a womb under thee. There is none understanding in him. All right. So those that have gotten in bed with you, right? Listen, they turn the cold shoulder on you, man. Which chiefly is a house divided. All right, because this house, Edom's house, is divided, which means they're gonna fall because they're the 10 toes. They're the clay mixed. They're the toes mixed iron mixed with miry clay, man. Right? And if you check that out, clay does not stick to iron. Let's see. Matthew 12:25. It says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And they're divided against themselves, man. Okay? The whore that sitteth upon the beast, is showing how prideful they is. They are Edomites, but it's division within this Edomite power structure, which is gonna, lead to their demise. They're going to cleave to the other Edomites, which are the Russians, in the book of Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. Okay? You see? Turkey is going to cleave to Russia. And you got these NATO nations, the NATO is going to turn on America. The beast shall hate the whore. Right? I'll get there real quick. Revelation 17. This is Revelation 17:16. It says, and the 10 horn which thou sawest upon the beast, because when you read in Daniel, it talk about a beast that had 10 horns, right? So it says, and going into that, what the fourth beast, which is Rome, and like we just said, America signed a treaty. What they signed the Treaty of Rome, right? Why was the Treaty of Rome established? Why would he call it Rome? Because America is Rome 2.0. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast shall hate the whore. So this whole system, right? The NATO with the EU is going to turn on America, man. So these 10 horns, that's what it's talking about. Because when the EEC was established, it consisted of 10 countries, but they've added more. But this is what it's going into, those 10 horns. You see, but as a collective, they're going to all turn on America, and they're going to hate the whore, which is America, known as Babylon the Great, and shall make her desolate and naked. So to strip her from everything that any type of alliances that they had, agreements that they had, they're going to make her desolate and naked. So Israel's only ally is going to be America, man. All right? And shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Yeah. Let's see something right quick. Daniel 7. Let's see. See if I can find it. See, more stout than his fellows. 10 horns. And the 10 horns, look right there. Just going into that fourth beast, see? the fourth beast, which is Rome. In the verse 20, look, it says, "In the 10 horns in the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom three fell." That's going into the Spanish, the French, and the British, because that's how America got its independence, right? Was because it talks about a little horn, a little horn. That little horn is America. Even of that horn had eyes and a mouth speaking very great things. Then it's talking about America, whose look was more stout than his fellows, right? And beheld the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. And who did that? How did America make war with the saints, man? Put them in slavery, all right? You got the Trail of Tears, right? They did all these things until our nation, the nation of Israel, right? Because America was built off the back of what you would call Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So that's how they made war with them and still make war with the saints as today, still today. But what I wanted is up here. Look, bam, verse 11, and I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, this little horn, right? When this horn, not the little horn. Let me see. I'm going too fast. I'm excited. All right. So the fourth beast, right? All right, yeah, talking about the little horn. Yeah, Salaki. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain and his body destroyed and given to a burning flame. Now that it goes into that fourth beast, man. All right, but that little horn is connected to that fourth beast because America is Rome 2.0. All right. Now, as we know, that Rome wasn't set on fire, it wasn't given to a burning flame. America will be given to that burning flame. Okay? Which we know NATO and the EU, no, not NATO. NATO, the EU, and America splitting apart is part of prophecy. Going back to the topic. Daniel's 2. This is Daniel's 2 and 40. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise." So this is, the fourth beast, which is Rome. Rome is that fourth beast. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay, part of iron, and the kingdom shall be divided. The NATO and the EU, America, right, which makes up this whole system. Okay? They are divided. But there shall be in it of the strength of iron, all right, because the military, okay? For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part iron, and and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Okay? And as whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, because that's what he's done. Alright? He's mingled with the other nations. But they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. All right, so they don't come together. They don't stick. Okay, it's like oil and water at this point. They're divided. They're not in unison with one another. This is how this place is gonna fall. It's gonna crumble, man. All right, America's gonna lose all its allies, and then what's gonna happen? All right. This place is going to be utterly destroyed by thermonuclear fire. You see? This article right here. It says, let me get to the point. It says, afterwards he issued an all caps comment on social media suggesting he remained aggrieved. NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. Trump said in his post, White House did not immediately offer any further updates. All right, it says, let's see. The Republican president has had a warm relationship with Tet, if that's how you say it, in the past, and the meeting came after the U.S. and Iran late Tuesday agreed to a 2-week ceasefire that concluded reopening the straits. The nascent ceasefire was struck after Trump said he would strike Iran's power plant bridges, threatening that the whole civilization would die tonight. See, this dude just be popping off at the mouth, man. You know, just be popping off at the mouth. Salaki. Oh shit. I see. Oh, look right here. It's what I read earlier about the law they passed in 2023. All right, so 2001. Yeah, you can read this if you want to, though. All right, so we're seeing that the Lord's words are faithful and true, man. Their prophecy is playing out, you know, right before our eyes, man. Okay. There's a law-bearing president for pulling out of NATO. Right. Right. So, yeah, this is all that was going into, you know. So you can read this on your own. It's PBS News. You know, Trump complains NATO wasn't there when they needed them. All right, but hey, man, you in the whole trick bag, brother. You in a whole, you know, illusion. All right, being controlled by the Heavenly Father, man. You in the elites. So we seeing this happening, man, that, you know, this thing is getting ready to go down, bro. So the MOTB should be right around the corner. Okay, so with that, Lord willing, you are edified. Shalom.